Greetings everyone and welcome in today's webinar, Why Quality is a Risky Business. Great to have you here all with us. I am Shawn Mehmeti, the Portfolio Marketing Manager for Quality Management System here at PCB and organizer of this webinar. This webinar will be presented by ICO 31000 PCB Certified Risk Manager and Trainer with 20 years of experience in quality management and more than 12 years of experience in enterprise risk management, Mr. Eddie de Vries. Please feel free to write your questions and comments in the question box in the right-hand control panel, or you can use the raise hand function. We will unmute you and you will have a chance to ask the question directly to Eddie. All of the other questions will be answered accordingly at the end of the presentation. Please, Eddie, you may continue with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Shawn, and I want to welcome everyone to the session. And I'm very passionate about the release of the new ISO 9001-2015 version, especially with the inclusion of risk management within the standard. Why is it so important to us? And this is the question that I raised. Why quality is risky business? The start of, I just want to make sure that I can go to the next slide. I'm gonna talk about 3 points today. Why is risk management important? How do I build risk management into my QMS, and how to create a sustainable risk management program. Now, why risk management? Why risk management within quality management? Well, for many years we were doing risk management in quality management anyway. It was just never called risk management. The reality is that it's come to the forefront, and it is becoming such an important element in how we do things in our organizations. Now we can focus our risk management on just process level, but we're never going to get the value out of our enterprise risk management that way. So our focus of enterprise risk management should really start at the strategy level, and you'll see as I go through my slides today that it is imperative that we cover or start covering our enterprise risk management endeavors at strategic level and take it through the organization. Now, why is risk management important? Well, the reality is we take risks within our organization. It doesn't matter the size of our organization, and it doesn't matter the type of organization or what type of business we're in. We take risk, and we take the risk to make a profit if we manage the risk. If we do not manage the risk, we will have a loss. Now to put that into context briefly, is if we have a manufacturing line, we in manufacturing to make a profit. There's a risk that we might manufacture bad quality or waste, and that's the loss. So risk management, in simple terms, has been part of our quality makeup for many years. Now, why is risk management important? Well, the risk concept is woven throughout the new standard. I'm not going to spend too much time on that today. Products and services has been replaced with or replaced products specifically. So our risk concepts are not just going to go through our products, but through our services that we render as well. The process approach is becoming much more imperative, and as part of our process approach, we should also engage with our risk-based thinking or our risk-based approach within our processes. The context of the organization is added, and as part of the context, we should also consider the risk environment of our organization. And then lastly, the emphasis on risk-based thinking. So we should change our approach rather from straight compliance to the standard, rather to a risk-based thinking approach where we have a look at the ups and the downs in our processes. So carrying on that slide, risk management is first of all we need to understand risk management, and risk management is the process of identifying, addressing, prioritizing and eliminating potential sources of failure. Why? So that we can achieve our objectives, may it be on any level of the organization, strategic, tactical, operational, it doesn't really matter. But the basis of us doing risk management is to take our organization towards that success or defined objectives as we set it out. Now, it has a couple of points in it that is key to it. The one is we need to identify risks. We need to address them if it doesn't fall within our risk appetite. We need to prioritize them. And then lastly, the areas we want to eliminate these potential sources. Now, applying risk management means being proactive, preventative, predictive, and preemptive, and it's generally referred to as the 4 Ps in industry at the moment. You'll see when I quote my references on the last slide. It was made up of the 4 Ps. Now think of this very briefly. As you run quality management within your organization, you want to do this to be proactive, to be preventative, to create predictive, and to be preemptive. Risks ask the question, what if? So what if this goes wrong or this goes right? And it looks at a likelihood and consequence to determine which of the what ifs are significant and needs to be addressed. Now, it is at this point where our general being humans is to try and address either all the risks or try and eliminate risks. And the key here is not elimination. The key is to manage it towards an acceptable level, and that might be at any level as a risk rating or as a risk level. As we move along, the next question the next phase is why is risk management important for quality? If we look at quality, we see the objective gaps imply higher shortcomings in the processes, which means higher risk. Now, the more variances there are, the higher the variances, it leads to less uniformity in product or service. It's very important for us to do the right things every time. And through risk management, we can be proactive in our identification. Remember the 4 Ps, predictive, proactive, in our approach in managing our organizations. Now, is this important in our process approach? Very much so. The reason being is any organization consists of processes. And these processes are created to enable the strategy of the organization. If we create a process that creates a risk for us, or the process inherently exposes us to risks, we need to address it. Now, by reducing the risk, we reduce the objective gaps and variation and increase the quality. That's why quality is risky business. So how do I build risk management into my QMS? The question has come up quite a lot, and the real delta here is that historically you've got very strong quality management people, and you've got very strong risk management people. And when I talk about risk management, I refer to enterprise risk management, and not necessarily health and safety and environmental, although it forms part of your enterprise risk management view. And typically these two different or schools of thought never integrated. The reality is now that all the efforts, may it be quality management, may it be health and safety, environmental, or enterprise risk management as such, is all focused towards the successful enablement of the strategy of the organization. So the reality for us is that integration is key. And in my view, there's no better resource than a quality resource in executing risk management within the organization. There's one downfall of it though. One typically in organizations, and I'm generalizing at the moment, quality was never seen as a strategic issue. It was always seen as a tactical or operational issue. The clear reality for us going forward is that it should be seen as a strategic issue and not just tactical or operational. So how do I build risk management into my QMS, you might be asking? Well, everything in the organization are based on risk. It doesn't matter if we deliver a service, if we deliver a product or design or not design, whatever the organization is about, it is based on risk. As we have a look at organizations currently, we just either manage those risks by creating processes without identifying the risk as such. So typically what would happen in quality management is we would go into an organization, evaluate the processes, create a bunch of processes and not necessarily understanding why we're creating the processes. We're just documenting the processes. It is key for us to first understand the risk that a process or processes within an organization, the risks that are relevant there, and create the process to manage those risks accordingly. Now, if we do not do that, we're either going to over-specify risks or under-specify risks if we do not understand the risk environment. The second point is to accept that risk management is critical to quality management and quality. Why? It is really to identify what could go wrong in our endeavor towards our quality objectives or organizational objectives, strategic objectives. The whole process of risk management, doesn't matter what type of standard you take, may it be ISO 31000 or COSO as such, it is all based towards this performance enablement of the organization, which is nothing more, nothing less than quality. Quality 20 years ago or 30 years ago was based on processes and some processes around it. Today, quality management are much more mature in terms of enablement of the organization, rather a business management standard or business management frame than just quality functions within it. Step is skill yourself in risk management. It is imperative that we understand risk management methodologies, best practices out there, so that we can build this into our system. And then the last one, which has been said in many presentations, but it needs to be said again: gain support from top management. If there's no support from top management in your risk management implementation or risk management endeavor, it's never going to be a success. So where do we start? We start at the top, at strategic level. Any organization, it doesn't matter, once again, what type of service or product you deliver, basically consists of three levels. The first level is the strategic level, and that is typically where the direction and the strategy of the organization is set, together with the objectives and the rest. That's then taken down through the organization, and these are normally enabled by processes within the organization. May it be sales or marketing or design or manufacturing or after-sales service or finance or information technology. Whatever those processes are, they should be created to enable your strategy and not just documented to have a documented process. Now, that is a massive move from the typical thinking that we had over time. But it is imperative for us to go that way. The last level in any organization is the information level. And the information level typically creates different areas that we need to manage. First of all, the security around our information and the information we utilize to evaluate the success of our of our programs. Now, when I say start at the top, to build an enterprise risk management endeavor within your QMS, it is really a superfluous exercise if you do not have a strategy in the organization. Needless to say, many organizations do not have a strategic level. They just do business every day. It is imperative for you because it is part and parcel of your starting point to understand how the architecture of the rest of the organization should look like to enable that. So the risk management, your risk management endeavor starts at strategic level, identifying what could possibly go wrong or go right, being a downside or upside in enabling your strategy or in implementing your strategy, so that you can start managing those risks. Those risks will then break down, and the objectives will break down onto process level, where we will start defining the risk environment around the process and the execution of the process versus the enablement or the successful achievement of your objectives on process level, supporting your strategy. And then lastly, it will flow through to your information. Now, typically, where we would, as quality management professionals, start operating within the organization would be at process level and going down. The reality is, if we do not start from the strategic level and utilize that as our base for enablement of the rest of the organization, we're going to do nothing more than what we've done over the past couple of years. However, just creating some type of register extra on process level. Now, if you have a risk register in your process or you don't have a risk register in your process is besides the point. You're just going to create typically a register to make sure that you comply to the new standards, the new set of standard. Now, typically, and like I said, an organization is driven by the strategy and where this organization wants to end up with. If there's no roadmap, it is very difficult to build the processes to get to that roadmap. So, quality management and quality management professionals have to start operating on strategic level rather than just operating on process level. So how do I build risk management into my phase of the organization? How do I do that? Well, for one is you have to transfer knowledge to the organization and make them understand that risk management is part of the way you do things within the organization. It is always good to create a simple process where you just ask the questions. Should we decide to go this way, should we decide to implement this process, what risk would we create in doing that? Should we decide not to do this, what risk might become a reality if we do not implement that? Risk-based thinking and keeping risk at the top of mind becomes imperative to the success of your program. Now, in saying this, we've been doing risk management for many years, but inherently and not naturally focused at it this way. Some of us was just better at it than others, but there was no real focus point in risk management in our quality management systems. The second point is to have a toolkit for management and employees. If you just give them a spreadsheet to complete on a predefined period, they're going to end up completing it with little thought and little consideration. You don't want more information, you want relevant information. So create a toolkit where you can have management and employees understanding how they create this and what information is relevant. Point 3 is to evaluate all processes in the organization. Now, the process approach is quite clear in the new standard, and the presentation is is not on that, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But typically what we want to understand is when we execute a process, two things. The one is, what risk do we want to manage with this process in our endeavor to make our objective a reality? And second thing is, in executing this process, what risk do we have in executing it? So it's really two sides to one coin. It's a delivery versus non-delivery. The third thing is, fourth thing is, evaluate the risk of processes on other processes. Now, as we know, organizations exist of multiple processes, of where the one provides an output that becomes an input to the next one. It's a very simple process or a very simple concept, but it's something, once again, that typically we as quality management professionals have been managing very badly. So the question we have to ask ourselves is should we be managing, what processes should we be managing very well to minimize risk and to enable other processes to be successful? Imperative, like I said, is to start from the strategic level. If we do not start from the strategic level, we're just going to create information and not necessarily create information that's relevant to the success of the organization. Now, while I say this, once again, historically, quality management professionals and quality was run within organizations not to enable strategies, but to rather get organizations to comply. So the focus of our endeavors should change not just from away from compliance. Compliance is still a part of it, but definitely towards the enablement of the strategy of the organization. The next point I want to make is to evaluate people, processes, plant, money, and all the effects they have in creating a risk within your process, within your organization, or within your strategy. Now typically risk only has two origins, one internal and two external. And internal, typically it's created by three avenues. One is either people, the resources in the organization, human resources or human capital. Secondly is the processes within the organization. And thirdly, the systems that support us. Externally, it is driven from a pestle point of view, which is political, economical, social, legal, technological, and environmental. Typically everything that is external to the organization. Evaluate these and keep these at top of mind when we start looking at doing risk assessments within our strategy and doing risk assessments within our processes and information layers within the organization. So how do I build risk management into my QMS? Well, for one is, I think I've stressed the point enough that you have to start from the strategic level. But from the strategic level, you want to start defining the objectives that processes need to deliver to you. And based on that objective and the criticality of that objective within your process, you're going to start defining how well your risk management within that process should be. If the process is not critical to the organization and managing the risk within that organization, your control around it does not necessarily need to be that high. Thirdly, it is absolutely critical for us to measure. And historically, we used to measure in manufacturing plants quite well, and they've developed numerous models around that. However, in service industries, our measurement, service and professional industries, our measurements was always lacking. It is a clear requirement within the new standard as well. And as I take this through, as we start defining the process objectives, the measures around it, we want to try and identify these events that could could possibly make us not successful in achieving our process objective. Now, if we take the strategic objectives and break that down into process objectives, our chance of success of our strategy becomes much higher. Now, I just took an example here, process objective, sell product to an existing future client at a profit. It's a simple objective, doesn't matter what organization you're in, you should roundabout have an objective like that. The measurement is called a KPI, a key performance indicator. And I just created 3 examples here. One is a new sales growth, which equals 12%, current client growth, which equals 8% on the base, and then a revenue target of 5 million. Now, we can add to that, and within your organizations, you would have your own type of measurements as well. However, we want to now try and define the risks that will make us not succeed that. And one example of that on the measurement or the KPI would be something like this: engagement with clients not interested or qualified. Now, we might be seeing 80 clients and only 1 client is interested in our service or our product, and at that rate we are very inefficient in our process in creating new sales. So together with this, we want to create a key risk indicator, which could possibly be, so it's generally referred to as a KRI, which could possibly be the hit rate of our client engagement versus successful sales. Just an example, once again, a simple example, but if we drive it throughout our organization that way, we enable the strategy. The next example, 12% or current client growth, which equals 8%, providing solutions or products below set margins. Now, if there's a certain margin within our organization and we keep on selling below cost, we're not going to have the growth. The next example would be inappropriate handover to operations. Typically, most organizations struggle very much where they create, get a sale, and operations are not delivering as per the sale agreement, because the handovers between sales and operations are quite weak. Now, purely just an example, but it's a very good example that you can utilize going forward. The strategy provides the direction, the process enables that direction, and what could stop us from achieving that. So typically, if I go into an organization to go and have a look if they implemented their risk management endeavors throughout their organization at process level, I would typically have a look if you did go through a process like this. So why do we create a process then? Well, the process then we create, or typically generally referred to as controls, but these processes we create to manage the risk accordingly. And I just took this as an example. The risk is in the first one is the engagement with clients, not interested or qualified. The control or the process around that would be to target marketers set out in sales strategy and client qualifications. So the implementation of the control or the process would make sure that the risk is either less likely to occur, and we would be closer towards our objective or target as set out, which is a client growth of 12%. We can then measure that on a continuous basis to see if we're successful or not. The second example, providing solutions or products below set margins. I said all quotations or proposals based on approved pricing. So creating a process or a control where there's approved pricing available before quotations are handed over. The next one, appropriate handover to operations, client handover sessions between sales and operations. And typically, we create these processes to manage the risk accordingly. Now, typically what we would have done as quality management professionals, this window would have been split in two. The left side of the window, which has a heading of risk, would have resided somewhere else in the organization, and I almost want to go as far as this and say most organizations didn't even evaluate that. The right side where it says management is where quality management and the quality management professionals came in and started creating processes, but not necessarily to manage a risk or to enable a objective or strategy. We're going to have to start looking differently at this going forward. And the reality is that we need the risk environment so that we can create relevant management processes and controls to manage that accordingly. Now, if we don't do this, what's the downside? Well, the first thing is I have not come across employees working for free. And employees, as they're not working for free, if we make them work efficiently or not efficiently, it has an outcome on the cost of our product and also our ability to be profitable or even more profitable. So employees, plant, environment, our machines, our process designs, all of these things plays a role in our organization in being successful. So it is imperative for us to understand the risk environment before we create our process environment. So how do I create a sustainable risk management program? I mean, although we all now know that we have to endeavor down this road and we have to do it, and most probably employing risk managers to do this, it is very important for us to understand that everybody in the organization plays a role within risk management. So it is not a department alone doing risk management, it is the whole of the organization doing risk management. So these are a couple of downfalls, and you'll see I'll give full credit to the source of the information. There's a couple of downfalls, 6 things that will make you fail. The first thing is assuming that the relevance of the enterprise risk management is obvious. If we assume it's obvious to the organization or to management or to our peers, it's going to fail. It's something you have to sell to the organization, and it's something you're going to have to sell to the organization through all levels on a continuous basis until they see the benefit of it. We've been selling quality management for many years, so you should be very good at doing this as well. The second point that will make you fail is deficiencies in risk assessments. And I see this all the time when I go to organizations. The main tool in their arsenal is to have a risk workshop, and a workshop is only as good as 2 things. One is the facilitator, and the second thing is the participation. And facilitators are not always as effective and efficient as they should be, and participation normally by a long shot is not as good as anticipated. The reality is there's always somebody that talks more than the rest, and their arguments normally wins. There's a host of tools available that can help you do risk assessments, and I would suggest you go and have a look at ISO 31010, which is a document that lists tools for different stages of your risk management phase, from identification to assessment to management to reassessment. The third point on what will make you fail is the ERM framework doesn't reflect the organization's unique characteristics. Enterprise risk management doesn't have a one-size-fits-all scenario. Framework that you created for one organization doesn't necessarily will not necessarily work in a different organization, because the cultures within organizations and processes differ. So we need to create an enterprise risk management framework that reflects the culture and the personality of an organization, that will make that organization adopt the framework as their way of work. So if you ask for a template, you're most probably not going to get your framework right. If we create a stale framework, we're going to get the organization to fail in their risk management endeavors. What will make you fail? Insufficient focus on the existing risk culture. So in organizations, depending on where you find yourself in your growth or organizational cycle, is it in a very aggressive growth phase? Is it a stabilization phase? Is it downsizing? Based on that, the risk culture within the organization will be set. Now, if you do not drive or create the culture, the risk culture that is necessary within the organization, your risk management endeavor will fail as well. The next thing is inadequate or complex reporting. And it almost seems to me that organizations think complex reporting provides more relevant information, which is further from the truth. Normally, risk management professionals are trained within their subject, and they are subject matter experts, and the interpretation of information coming from your risk environment is quite easy to them. The rest of the organization, it is a very complex issue. So creating reporting mechanisms or reporting information in the most sensible and easy usable way for the organization will take you a long or far way. But together with reporting, I also found that inadequate reporting creates a bit of a problem. The reality is, if your reporting is also weak and do not have the ability to highlight the areas that actually needs attention, it's also going to make you fail. The last part in what will make you fail is the failure to embed risk management into existing processes. Most organizations are not startups, and they've been around for quite a number of years, and they have existing processes and existing cultures and personalities within that organization. If you create your risk management framework and processes within the organization as an add-on to what's already existing there, it's going to stay an add-on. It's going to be an afterthought. It's going to be done on an ad hoc basis, and typically you would start creating compliance around this, saying you have to update your register once a month or report on your risk profile quarterly. This would take you down a spiral path of no return. The reality is people is going to run it as not as a business tool, but they're going to run it as compliance as you create it. So guard against that very much. Embed it within the existing processes. Make it part of the way the organization is run and managed. The last point definitely for me is gaining support, and how do we gain support as we go forward? Well, one, changes are never easy. We know that as human beings. We don't like change. We don't like traveling a new route to work. So typically we don't want to change. Organizations don't want to change as well. So we have to drive this through a proper change management channel with focus areas that we drive. Now, it is imperative for us to always focus on the strategy of the organization, because that's what we want to enable throughout our risk management implementation or endeavor. Become part of the executive arena. If the executives do not deploy this within the way they work in the organization, you're not going to get the support from the rest of the organization. So become part of the executive arena, get them to support the program, get them to utilize it to their advantage. Typically, if we want to think of an area where this could be deployed quite easily and get management to support it, is in the adjudication of capital budgets within organizations. Typically, capital budgets, or CapEx as it's known, would be adjudicated based on a certain percentage or based on what needs to be done going forward. And organizations that's very forward thinking utilize has a central CapEx budget, and adjudication of that CapEx budget is done based on risk assessments within the different areas. So no CapEx is given or adjudicated if it's not going to manage a risk or the enablement of or enablement of the strategy or managing the risk within the organization. Reference should be on the business management system rather than quality management. It is important for us to say that this is a business management system rather than quality management. Quality management is long past where it is just quality. We know that the new standard, and it was actually forthcoming since the 2000 version, we know that the new standard is driving us towards a holistic view of business rather than just quality. So quality becomes a part of it. The next thing is get quick results. Go and find the low-hanging fruit, fix that or solve that problem for management, and you'll gain the support of management. The next thing is show confidence and believe in the approach. If we are not positive and have confidence in our approach in risk management, it's going to filter through to the rest of the organization. So we have to show confidence and believe in the difference the approach will make within our organizations. That's the end of my presentation. I just put in a couple of references that I've utilized throughout the presentation. There's some good reading material and some good insights. So you're more than welcome to go and have a look at them. And that's the end of my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Eddie, for this great presentation and for the explanation about the risk in the quality management system. Now with the time left, we will go ahead with questions. Therefore, if you have any questions, it's time to ask them, and please use the comment box or raise your hand function. Okay, then the first question is, what are the basic requirements for identifying risk for processes and the business of the entity?
Could you just repeat the question?
Yes. What are the basic requirements for identifying risk for processes and the business of the entity?
Okay, so risk identification should not start at the first line of identifying the potential future events. It should start at the objective of the process. If you're talking just on process level at the moment, it should start at the objective of that process. Why do we have the process? What part of that process enables or that process enables what part of the strategy? The second part is then these potential future events that could stop us from achieving that objective of the process. As we identify these, not all of them would have the same impact or the same likelihood. If it's ISO 31000, they'll most probably refer to probability and consequence. So what's the consequence of this event on the success of achieving the objective of the organization? So putting that into context quickly, it is potential future events that could stop me from achieving the objective of the process. My next step is to try and gauge how bad or how good is this risk for me. Now that's just done by rating consequence or impact or probability and likelihood. That's done in two ways. The one is done on a qualitative way, and the other one is done on a quantitative way, and especially on your impact and consequence. But basically, you want to understand the quantum of this risk. Should we do nothing about it? That is then compared with something that's referred to as your risk appetite or risk tolerance, and the decision might be made at that stage. We will accept the risk as it is. If you do not accept the risk as is, you would typically want to go and have a look at parts within your process managing that risk. And this would be things like documented processes, SOP, standard operating procedures, templates, approvals, decision-making processes, typically within your processes to manage it towards the achievement of the objective. Lastly, should those controls not exist, should those processes not be there, then you create management action to go and institute these things. Typically what we would have created many years ago in terms of our corrective and preventative actions. Does this answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Could you please just go some slides back, just not to have this black screen? And also we have got so many questions. I'm going to read the next one. Do you have an example of spreadsheet or risk management analysis or toolkit?
Yes, I do. What type of industry?
Actually, this is the question. It's written like this, and probably you can just explain.
Okay. Yes, there's a number of models, especially on LinkedIn. You can go and search the risk management forums there. You'll find a number of them, but I'm more than welcome to forward on mine as well. So if I have the information of the person who asked the question, I'm more than welcome to do that.
Yes, you have everything written down. Okay, the last question for today is, what are the practical ways, methods, activities or processes to get the entire employees in my organization buy into risk management?
Okay, so the key here is knowledge, and knowledge is not created within a day or 2 days. It is created over a large period of time. Now, awareness in the organization that the focus on risk management is how the organization will be managing it going forward. So awareness is created on every level of the organization. I always use an example saying if there's somebody that's cleaning the office space, if they're not there, what type of risk does it create for us? So they need to understand the risk environment and their role to play within the organization as well. Once you create the awareness in the organization, you start sharing knowledge. It's not done in one effort. It's done over a long period of time. You start sharing knowledge and in enabling the organization to start taking control of their risk environment. Knowledge is created through understanding risk methodologies, understanding the strategy of the organization, and creating an environment like that. And then thirdly is to create the culture within the organization. Now, cultures are built over time, and once again, not just with one session or one information session. If, argument's sake, in Europe they decide they're now going to drive on the left-hand side of the road, people are going to be confused. They're not going to understand why the change, and they're going to be resistant to it. But if they start changing roads to drive on the left-hand side of the road, one by one, the resistance is going to be much less, and people will start accepting it and utilizing it as such. So your drive should be to give them create a focused knowledge sharing plan and strategy in how you enable the organization to understand in risk management. It should follow the maturity of your risk management processes within the organization. You can't give them the full risk management scope, but the maturity of your risk management processes are not there to support it. So as you create the maturity of your risk management processes, your knowledge sharing and knowledge creation in the organization needs to support that. I can't reiterate this point enough. People are not going to change because we ask them. People will change because they see the benefit of it. If they anticipate the change to be workable, they'll change. If they anticipate it or do not understand it, they will not change. They will resist it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, then because of the time limited, we have to conclude this presentation. However, if you have any other questions, you can send your question through email and we will answer all of them individually. Thank you again, Eddie, for this clear and informative presentation. I want to thank all the attendees as well for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. To keep up with our webinars, please check PECB's webinar, or you can check our website, pecb.com, in our social media. Since next week, we are organizing a webinars on interesting topic. Next Tuesday, we are hosting a webinar aligning a robust materiality assessment with corporate strategy and target. Thank you, Eddie, for this informative and great presentation. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.